Echoes of Tehran. 1943. The Tehran Conference brought Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin together for their first face-to-face meeting. Their agreement on Operation Overlord created the unified military strategy that enabled the Western Allies to land in Normandy the next year. Their discussions on Germany, Poland, Iran, and post-war security set the first clear outline of how the international order would function after World War II. These decisions formed anchor points that continue to shape modern global structures. 1944. The success of Operation Overlord advanced directly from the strategy approved at Tehran. The invasion forced Germany to fight on two major fronts and accelerated the collapse of the Nazi regime. The success of the cross-channel operation strengthened U.S. and British influence in Western Europe and ensured that later reconstruction would follow democratic systems backed by U.S. economic and military support. This outcome established the political divide that still defines the continent. 1945. The defeat of Germany followed the dual-front pressure endorsed at Tehran. With Nazi Germany defeated in May, the political issues discussed at the meeting moved into immediate focus. Germany's division into occupation zones, first discussed in principle at Tehran and detailed later at Yalta and Potsdam, set the structure that produced the Federal Republic of Germany and the German Democratic Republic. This division set the foundation for decades of geopolitical tension. The leaders' conversations about Poland's future borders also became reality when Poland moved west, with its eastern regions absorbed by the Soviet Union and its western territories expanded into former German lands. This shift remains visible on the map today. 1946. The emerging political divide between the Soviet Union and Western allies reflected concerns visible at Tehran. The conference had exposed conflicting aims regarding Eastern Europe. By 1946, Soviet influence had expanded across the region. The political lines that formed grew from disagreements that surfaced at the Tehran discussions on sovereignty, borders, and long-term security. These tensions marked the early formation of the Cold War. 1947. The Truman Doctrine and the Marshall Plan arose from conditions shaped by Tehran's strategic choices. The United States recognized the need to stabilize Europe economically and politically to prevent further expansion of Soviet influence. Because Tehran had placed the Western Allies firmly in control of liberated Western Europe, the United States was in a position to direct reconstruction. The Marshall Plan reshaped European economies and set long-term partnerships still active today. 1948. The Berlin blockade demonstrated the deeper divide that had been visible at Tehran. The occupation zones that the leaders had discussed led to separate political structures. When the Soviet Union blockaded West Berlin, the United States and Britain launched the Berlin Airlift. This event emerged from territorial decisions first confirmed in wartime conferences and set permanent distinctions between East and West. 1949. The formation of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization followed the strategic reality shaped by Tehran. The Western Allies had cooperated during the war through joint planning and coordinated military operations that began with the decisions at Tehran. These wartime habits of cooperation made NATO possible. The alliance became a permanent security structure that remains central to modern defense policy. 1953. Iran, a major topic at Tehran, entered a new political phase. The Tehran Conference had included a joint pledge to support Iran's independence and assist its economy. After the war, Iran navigated foreign influence from both Western countries and the Soviet Union. The 1953 Anglo-American-backed coup that removed Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh demonstrated the continuing impact of Allied wartime policy and the strategic value placed on Iran since the conference highlighted its importance as a supply route and geopolitical position. 1961. The Berlin Wall rose along the same lines drawn by the occupation zones discussed at Tehran. This physical barrier represented the Cold War divide that had grown from Allied disagreements over Eastern Europe. The composition of Berlin, split into sectors under the major powers, was a direct product of wartime planning. The wall became a lasting symbol of the geopolitical consequences shaped through the wartime conferences. 1979. The Iranian Revolution brought a dramatic shift in a country that had been addressed in the 1943 Joint Declaration. The Allied commitment to Iran's sovereignty during the conference became part of a longer pattern of international involvement. Iran's political transformation in 1979 influenced global energy markets, regional balance, and Western foreign policy. These developments linked back to Tehran's wartime significance as a geopolitical crossroads. 1989. The fall of the Berlin Wall dissolved one of the clearest boundaries formed through the wartime decisions. The end of Soviet control in Eastern Europe and the reunification of Germany followed decades of tension rooted in the territory and security concerns expressed at Tehran. The political map of Europe shifted again, undoing divisions that had been shaped in the course of wartime negotiations. 1991. The collapse of the Soviet Union ended the global structure that had formed following disagreements visible in 1943. The post-Soviet states inherited many borders that reflected decisions related to Poland, Eastern Europe, and security concerns first expressed during the conference. The geopolitical balance moved into a new period, yet the effects of the wartime planning still influenced diplomacy, military partnerships, and regional borders. 2003. NATO's enlargement into Eastern Europe demonstrated the end of the wartime division. Countries that had once fallen under Soviet influence began joining an alliance built on cooperative frameworks developed through wartime collaboration. This shift closed the strategic gap that had formed when Tehran and later conferences revealed clear differences between the Allies over post-war spheres of influence. 2014. Russia's annexation of Crimea revived issues first rooted in discussions about borders and spheres of control in Eastern Europe. Modern tensions reflect long-standing concerns about security, territory, and influence. These concerns trace back to early wartime conversations, where Allied leaders attempted to define stable frontiers after defeating Germany. 2022. Renewed conflict in Eastern Europe again highlighted the significance of the borders shaped after World War II. The NATO alliance, built on cooperative military planning that began during wartime meetings, responded through unified sanctions, increased defense support, and expanded cooperation. Modern diplomatic and military actions still reflect the alliances and divisions formed during the 1943 conference. The Tehran Conference shaped the modern era through its decisions on military coordination, national borders, global alliances, and post-war political structures. It stands as a central event in 20th century history because its outcomes continue to influence global diplomacy, military policy, and regional stability. The effects remain visible across Europe, the Middle East, and international institutions that still rely on the frameworks developed through discussions among Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin. For enthusiasts of historical ephemera, visit history-collectors.com to find collectibles that might complement your collection. You can own a piece of history.